Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Morning, David.
Sir?
Glad to see you're looking well this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Feeling a lot better. Today, we're going to continue the conversation on scaling, but we're going to take it in terms of people, right? And we talked at the end of the last podcast about Gino Wickman's right butt, right seat philosophy. And in scaling, you have to build your hierarchy appropriately to be able to delegate tasks, right? You can't do, whether it's one location, multiple locations, whatever it is, you're going to have to expand capability, and it's going to have to be people power to some extent, right?
Yeah, I think the human resource side of things in scaling, it's intentional growth.
Yeah.
There's also natural growth within a business. And I think sometimes the natural growth affects human resources in a negative way. You know, we start pushing people up within an organization. And in my corporate world, I've seen this a lot, where you get your best salesman and they become the sales manager, your top accountant becomes, and then you have those people that were also key innovators, key in change in the business, are pulled away from that because they're doing management. So maybe right butts and right seats is what has to happen pre-scale.
Yeah, or at least the plan for those right butts in the right seat, right? Sometimes in small business, we don't have the option to just take someone out of a role and put them in a new role, right? Mm-hmm. Or to take this person and, hey, you're going to bump them up and there's someone right there to fill their job, right? A lot of small businesses don't have that same capacity that large corporations have, where they got 4 people doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so now you just take that one person's role and you spread it across all of them. So I think there's a shift that needs to happen, or a scaled process of moving responsibility to someone. And so I think the one thing that I learned as I started to scale our business was I had very reliable people doing a very reliable job. And the moment I had, and I'll use Michelle in my company as an example. At one point, Michelle was my right arm. She helped me do absolutely everything, from manage the company to manage our presentations to manage money transfers to build plans, everything we did. And that was when I was really the lead sales kind of guy out in front. And our agreement was I did anything that was client facing and she did everything else, right? So if it was client facing, I had to sit down, get on the phone, do something like that. It was me. She made a great point to me about 4 years ago. And when I said, remember when it was so simple, it was just me and you, we used to just crush? And she goes, yeah, I do. It was a lot of fun. And she said, but now it's not that I'm your right arm. I run a division of the company. Mm-hmm. So she does that for all salespeople in all divisions of the company. She sort of runs that entire division now. So it's something that I don't have to worry about across the board. And so that one sort of took its role, and I sort of supported her in that advancement, and then hired behind her for her to train people to do it how she wanted to do it. And so the glory of that is that, you know, it used to be me doing all the sales and her doing all the support. And now it's the entire company doing the sales, and she's managing the entirety of our sales divisions.
So my question with that is, as she evolved into that role, was there a piece that now, due to the lessening of the interaction between the two of you, more responsibilities there, and you having more responsibilities, did you lose something in that transfer that was enabling you to be who you were?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely took 2 steps backwards.
Yeah. And so I think we need to be careful about taking something that people are very good at away from them, at least not in totality. So if, and I'll go back to the sales side of it. If we move someone from salesperson to sales manager, you have to remain a piece of that as sales trainer.
Yeah.
In the sports world, we go from, a coach that's coaching one level, or coaching all levels, and is very good at coaching, the basics. And in our instance, the basics of hitting. You develop some teams. They're also the best coach. They take on the top teams. They're coaching the elite teams, and all of a sudden, they're not there teaching the basic swing, and the other coaches coming up around them aren't learning, from them.
Yeah. So we made a decision, which I think is a great point. See, we made a decision that because she was always very good at managing the casework for me, and I was always doing the sales and the client facing stuff, basically made a decision that in this kind of lift, she would do all of the case management for all of the companies, and I would do all of the training. And so I still maintain the training side of manager.
Okay.
And she maintained the workload, case preparation, product design, all of the things that go into, hey, Mr. Sales Guy, here's the thing you need to go instill or install in this family. And then, because she never really did that client facing side. Now, what I trained her over time, which I think this is an incredibly important thing too, is that while she never wanted to sell anything and never wanted to prepare,
I heard that complaint from her
to present anything, I made her think and address cases on a sales basis.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to make a financial plan for someone, or we're going to make a plan to get a child into college for someone, or we're going to do a property and casualty plan for a business owner, right? She knows the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, just because we know the right thing to do doesn't mean it has the merits that someone's going to buy it from us, right? So as she started to build these cases, we would talk in a sales training mechanism where I would say to her, hey, listen, that's a great point, but you can't just you need this coverage on the paper. Why is important, because if you give me the why, then I can go deliver the product or service. So she really got good at the mental side of the why of things. And when you load a talented salesperson with the why you should do something, the rest is easy, right? You just have to present, here's the why, here's the solution.
Yeah, when we at Grand Slam, when we really dug into why we were there, what we were doing, and everybody's heard me say it a million times, our goal is to put more kids on a big field, and that's it. We're not promising college or pros or 300 average or any of that. And the more I said and told my story, the more those around me got to that. So now, as I've totally pulled myself out of that business, I still work on the business, but I'm not working in the business at all.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see my son, who runs the business now, talking to a customer, the story's the same. So the essence, the core of the company doesn't change. And so that's the key to scaling. If you can do that, and that's the key to growing individuals too, that there's got to be this interaction growing up so that when you do fully step away, and you stepped away from that side, Michelle was still crafting the same product that you would have crafted.
100%.
And you understand that she still needs, the team to do the presentation.
Yeah. And so there's another part to the scaling too, that was, when it was just me selling and presenting, that's one thing. And Michelle was capable of supporting that. Well, when you've got 5 guys selling, one person can't support 5.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's teaching somebody else the art of delegation and the necessary training. And so she learned a valuable lesson. And I think this is a huge takeaway, is that she always wanted it right. And so she was a perfectionist at that. And I appreciate it very much. But in her getting it right. She was working too much, spending too much time doing the work, and trying to take on too much. And so she learned the lesson of training, which the lesson of training is this, is that if you don't teach somebody how to do it the way you want, you will do it over again for them and you will redo it every single time. So rather than send the assignment downstream and get it back and be disappointed, send the assignment downstream and walk down the hallway and say, this is how I want you to do it, and sit at the desk and teach the person exactly what they're supposed to be thinking about, and the logic, reason, and knowledge that they need, you have to impart to them before they can just deliver it to you. And so she used to have them she used to have her support team, which was 3 people at the time, do pieces. And so one would do the grids, and grids a way we illustrate people's financial futures. So she would have them cut and paste things into the grid. Well, that's a relatively mundane task. It's literally a Control-C, Control-V, cut, paste operation. Yeah. There's no brain power to that. So the best you're getting out of that person ever is cut and paste. So why not teach them how to develop the things they're cutting and pasting? So now you can give them, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this, cut and paste it in the grid. And so it's been a process of teaching people, and it's not easy stuff that we're teaching, right? But the idea is if you're going to scale, you have to have your trusted people. Those trusted people then have to have their own trusted people that they can rely on to do the job that they may have used to do, or they may have, I don't even know how to say that right, but the job they used to do. Right?
Yeah, whatever.
And then from there, you can, and it doesn't have to happen all at one time. It can happen sequentially, right? But training is huge in scaling, right? Training becomes a very important task.
I agree totally. And I think one of the problems is that we tend to advance people based on a specific skill. I'll go back to my sales marketing career. I advanced as a salesperson and eventually advanced to being a position of sales manager, sales director, because I was good at sales. Very little training in management. But then the next step was director of sales and marketing. And when you look back at my history, I really had no training, no practical knowledge of the marketing side of it. So here I was running the whole marketing program, and I was in essence, a rookie, a novice at this. I didn't understand, what needed to be done. I hadn't, it's like, I'm old. I didn't understand social media. I didn't understand digital marketing, content marketing. There's a lot of things that I had to start from scratch. I was interested, so I learned, but I think you have to be careful that you move people up into a position that includes something that they're not adept at.
Yeah, my goal as an entrepreneur now is to have people around me that are smarter than me in whatever area they are supposed to be the expert, right? So if I turn and say, hey, I want to do this, I want the people that are a part of that to be able to say, well, this is how you do it. This is the best way to get it forward. Here's your responsibility. Here's our responsibility. Here's what has to happen. And so one of the things that scaling creates is it can be overwhelming, right? You can have that feeling of overwhelm because you're at the top of this thing trying to determine all the ways that you're going to do it. That right butt, right seat is huge because that's where you're going to find, or you're going to kind of train the people to know where their area of expertise is, whether by assignment, by title, or by project. And they're going to be able to give you the tools to make it come to fruition, right? You can't be the guy that is, I guess you can in some instances, but you're going to create a new marketing campaign.
Know someone who could benefit from our business expertise? Send them our way. Thank you.
So, go ahead. Question. Does that mean that sometimes you have someone who's very proficient, very good, moving up, and you have to take them and put their butt in an uncomfortable seat for something that maybe they don't want to do, they're not used to doing, but if you're looking down the road, that's something. If you're going to run this facility when I move over there, you're going to have to understand payroll and, some of these other things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't scale effectively unless if you think about it, right? In your first business or in your not scaled business, how many hats do you wear? Right.
Well, you usually start by wearing them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one at a time, you need to deliver hats to other people.
Right.
And so you are going to have to give people opportunities and in some cases force people to expand their knowledge base to be able to do it, because you just can't do it alone. Now, there's been a lot of development in this arena on the fractional side of you. Are you familiar with the fractional CEOs and CFOs and all that stuff that goes on?
Peripherally. Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't love it, because I would much rather have someone fully vested in what I'm doing than fractionally. But there are consultancies out there that run based on, you need a fractional CEO, someone to help lead, maybe 10% of the time or something like that. So you can develop that stuff until you learn the goods. I mean, I leave this afternoon and I'm going to a leadership seminar, trying to just make myself better at what we do and trying to lead people the right way. So I think there's a constant learning required. But to answer your question directly, I think absolutely you're going to have to force people that are capable and competent into situations where they may not be comfortable. But when they get comfortable, they are then elevated to a level that now puts them in a position to potentially manage an entire shop or manage a business.
And I think a lot of this depends on your initial hiring. And if you're hiring people with a growth mindset and can see that by them learning these different skills, different departments, how they fit in otherwise, they can, educate themselves in these fields. One of the advantages we have now that, I don't think it was kind of available when I first started into business. When I wanted to learn a new area, a new expertise, it's like I was going from being a technician to being a salesman. I wanted to learn about selling. So, you've seen my cassette tape collection.
Oh, I have.
Yeah. So, I set out to educate myself on sales, and I built my whole thing, and everybody's heard my Zig Ziglar stories and all that. But today it's even easier. So there's LinkedIn Learning, and, there's all kinds of courses that you can take if you want to do this. So you as a manager, if you can make assignments or suggestions to keep people growing in an area, and if they're in a sports world, if they're the top coach, they're coaching, at some point they're going to burn out on coaching. Coaching's tough, and you're going to burn out. The hours are tough, everything. But if you can convince them, now's the time to start studying management. And if you get them into some of these programs or tuned into a podcast where they're talking about management all the time, then they're building themselves up. So when time comes, they're ready.
Yeah, there's a certainly a requirement for constant learning. It is much easier to stagnate than it is to grow, and much easier to stagnate than it is to scale, right? Meaning, hey, we do this, we seem to be successful at it. Let's just do what we've always done and stay the course. And Steve, as you and I have said many times, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? That is the first step. I think the most dangerous phrase in business is, this is how we've always done it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because if that's how you've always done it, there's someone that's going to make it easier to do. There's someone that is going to take over the share of your business because they do it more efficiently or better. And so if you're not paying attention and constantly trying to improve and grow personally, professionally, in whatever area you are, someone out there is, and they're going to.
One of the areas in the sports world that is so neglected is the sales side of things. It's easy for me because I come from that background. But it's interesting. Niall and I were at Westchester University yesterday in front of 150 business students. And just out of curiosity, I asked a show of hands, how many had an intention of going into a sales career? Niall, back me up on this. We had 0 hands go up. Yeah, 150 students, nobody's gone into sales. And in reality, I'll turn them back to what you say and everything. If you're in business, you're in sales.
That's a fact.
Dave says that everywhere, everybody in business is in sales, everybody's in customer service. So that's a part of the training that has to go about it, because you can't leave. If you're going to scale to 3 locations, you can't take away any of your time if you're the only one that has a sales mentality.
Correct. And I think that's a ignorance that is in the youthful mind.
Now, make a note that, in an upcoming podcast, we need to zero in on how to sell in a sports entrepreneurship. I think, because people say, well, I there is no sales process. People just come in. Well, there is. And,
there should always be a sales process.
Yeah, and we need to get into the detail. The other thing about even the people that do sell, and I see this in the corporate world as well. And I don't know if it'll be interesting if you see it too, that people have a favorite close. They like selling a certain way, and they always fall back on this certain close. And the best salesman, does listening, pays attention, figures out where the need is, and that's where they close. And I think, it's like we tend to, in sports world, close on, here, our prices are better. We're in a better location. Whatever your favorite is, that's where you fall back on.
Yeah, I think that's a laziness that ensues. If you're successful one time with one thing, you're going to try it again, right? I think the true sales in itself, and again, this is part of scaling too, is if you pay attention throughout your sales process, whatever it is, to the feedback you receive from the client, the close presents itself. Mm-hmm. And it's not a close. It's a solution to a problem that has presented itself through a good Q&A session, through a good conversation, right? One of the things that I have been doing a lot of recently is retirement plans for small companies. And it's, for a profitable company, the plans I build are a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And so the questioning is simply, what are you doing? How's it working? Would you like to put more money aside for yourself? Things like that. And people are like, yeah, I'd love to. So
yeah, the beginning part of that sales process, and maybe we shouldn't call it a sales process because you're right, it's about solving a problem. But
we can dress it up any way you want, but it's a sales process.
Right, but it starts as an interview. I mean, the interview is to identify what problem you're going to try to solve.
Yeah.
And then once we can agree, customer and me can agree on what the problem is, then we're only talking solutions. And
correct.
Is this the best solution, or do we go somewhere else? But that's part of the training that, you can make the case, especially in small business. Everybody should have a part of that. The person that's greeting the customer when they walk in the door, whether you call it, front desk or
receptionist,
or whatever you call that person, and you make the case that sometimes it ought to be the owner, but you make that case all the time. But whoever that is should be tuned into the training of that sales process.
Yeah, without question. And the scalability only happens when everybody is in that position, when everybody is sort of tuned in, right? If you're not tuned in, you run into roadblocks that occur if the wrong people are in a position to talk to the client, right? And in the sports business, it's very easy. What can I do for you today? Like, what are you looking to do? Oh, we want to hit some balls. Great. Well, in case you didn't know, we have batting cages, coin operated. We also have tunnels you can rent if you guys want to work on something more in depth. And if you guys are done with hitting, you can certainly try and enjoy laser tag or Captain Cook's Pirate Mini Golf, Blacklight Mini Golf. And in case you were unaware, we also host birthday parties. So if you like it here, think of us.
I'll give you a quick story about, a case where I failed at this. I had a coach bring in a boy, name was Noah. It's irrelevant, but that's his name. But he came to me and says, yeah, he's a pretty good athlete. He runs really fast, tracks down things. But at the last minute, he ends up diving for the ball. Now, he catches a lot of them, but his timing's not right. It's like, so this was years and years ago. I believe it was in middle school. And so I started teaching him what to look for. So you look at the catcher signals. If they're calling for an outside pitch to a right-hander, you're going to lean a little bit to your left if you're a center fielder, and you're going to start. So you can see all these things. If you know a curveball is coming, there's a good chance the batter's going to be ahead of it. You may want to take a step to your right. So I went through all these things, and we were given signals. And this kid, Noah, got very good at jumping the gun and running these balls down and catching them. And, after a few sessions, he was doing really, really well. And, the coach was happy, and we got all done. And I said, Noah, what do you think? And he says, great, but can we go back to diving catches now? So I wasn't answering what the kid liked to do, diving catches. That was his focus. That's why he was here. And I did everything I could to take him out of his fun zone. Now, I could still teach all that stuff, but what I needed to do was mix in a few diving catches.
Yeah, without question.
Yeah.
So the key on scaling, I think, is you got to have your infrastructure in place. You got to be thinking ahead. And I always like to think 2 moves ahead. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just the next hire. What are the next 2 hires you think you're going to need? And if you can script that out well enough, right, you should know prior to scaling where you think you're going to hit stride, right? And so I think there's a lot of planning that comes into it. I would say think bigger than you're willing to think, right? Don't limit yourself on scalability. And evaluate the people you have. And are they doing the job they should do, they're best suited for, right? One of the things we hesitate to do in business is take those salespeople or take those, the people that are specialized and push them outside their comfort zone because they do the job that they've been asked to do very well. If they've done that job well, there's an indicator right there that they may do the next job very well also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pre-planning, thinking 2 moves ahead and using the assets you have the right way, whether they're human resource assets or whether they're technology assets. I think all of that is very important.
I'll throw one more perspective on this. And I think you have to be careful that you don't specialize a person out of an area of strength. So you have somebody that's real good, a salesperson that just happens to come up with, great innovative marketing ideas. And you specialize them so much that they don't show up for the marketing meetings anymore. You don't need them. And I think that you're hurting your business if you don't do that. In sports, we do it all the time. The best coach moves up and, I'll use gymnastics. In the gymnastic world, by the time they get them, they can do a kip on the bars. They can do a kip. That coach happens to be the best one at analyzing the techniques of teaching a kip. But because we've moved them with all the advanced, they're not spending time with the beginners enough to get the beginner coaches tuned into this. So I think there's an interaction, and I think you have to be careful that you don't fully specialize, at least in a small business, fully specialize people out of an area of expertise.
Yeah, I'll use the baseball analogy. We look for the 5-tool player all the time. I want the person that can step in and do a customer service role, somebody that can step in and do some analysis, somebody that can build a plan, somebody that can sell, talk. I'm looking for people that can cross lines all the time, because until you get to a really legitimate scale, you need people to cross-pollinate different areas. There's really not a ton of specialization needed until you have, established, think about that marketing piece, right? Your sales and marketing are so interconnected. If you pull all of sales out of marketing, you put yourself in a negative situation. So I think the cross breeding is huge.
And especially in today's world of what's happening with internet and AI and everything else that's going on, everything. And maybe that's why you don't see traditional org charts anymore, and you see org networks, and because you have, the accountant interacting with the marketing person and the IT person is working with sales. And so I think it's how you organize it. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is that no one's forcing you to have a direct layered org chart. You can keep people doing a little bit of everything as long as you're not overworking and you're adequately compensating them. Just because your sales manager is the best at cleaning the bathrooms doesn't mean that they have to do it.
Yeah.
But
no.
You have to let, if they're good at something, keep them involved. I know we're going late, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Without question. I think it's a huge point. So again, there's a lot more to scaling. I think we can get into more as we go forward. But keep in mind, you gotta shoot for the stars. The worst case scenario, you hit the moon, right?
Yeah, I think, your point of, plan 2 or 3 steps ahead is the key. Training is so important.
Yeah, training. Got to keep people abreast of what's going on.
Very good.
All right, everybody, this has been Paradigm Playbook.
Hey, everybody, click the subscribe. Stay with us. Thank you.
Love it. All right.
Do you want your business to thrive? Visit us at ParadigmPlaybook.com and contact us today for expert assistance.